What's up, T-Tim fam? Good morning. Eric here on Sunday, November 9th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time for The Truth About Me. This is episode 18. Before I get into that, um, I just want to tell you guys straight up, I appreciate, all the views and everything and the support. Hopefully, my videos are getting through to you guys. You know what I mean? That's my one and only goal. But today's going to be a great day. We're past the 2 week marker of the breakup, but now we're into this episode, which is basically the quiet rebuild. Nobody talks about what happens after the heartbreak, after the silence. This episode isn't about losing someone. It's about what happens when the only thing left to rebuild is you. Um, and that's one thing that I hate to say that I'm used to. Being an alcoholic and hitting rock bottom, I had to pick myself up. I've always lived by the motto: if you fall down 9 times, you get up 10. And that's true with anything in my life that I've gone through. And when it comes to relationships, everything's great. You think everything's great, and then it's not, and then you try to fix, and if you can't fix, you continue to work on it, and if you've exhausted all of the options, then you have to move on. Now, whether it's you moving on or whether it's your partner moving on, that's that's to be determined. But I know for myself personally, because of how I love with my whole heart. Now, being a guy, it's different. But in the same token, that's just how I am. Um, so, you know, when you have to go through and pick up the pieces of your love life and, be honest with yourself. And that's really one of the big things that's got me through a lot in my life is just being honest, calling myself out. If I messed up, I take the accountability, and I just use these as, lessons going forward, not to, you know, try to do in the next relationship that I come across. But, again, it's something that, you learn from yourself and you grow. I want to talk about when the noise stops. After the breakup, after the final drop, there's quiet. Your body is going through so many circumstances because you were, with that person. At least in my situation, like I was connected. I was locked in. I was dialed in. So like, I knew my routine. I knew her routine, and that's one thing that I always look forward to. And now, because the relationship is over, your body's saying, what's going on? Why aren't you doing these things? Why aren't you saying these things? Why aren't you feeling these things? And that's a lot. Because the quiet is deafening. um, it's uncomfortable, um, and it's something that you have to get acclimated to, because now it's just you and your own thoughts, right? In my case, one of the reasons why um, I chose to use this platform for, I kind of use this as my own vlog, my way of journaling. Like, yes, I still write, I physically write stuff, but for me it's easier to talk about it, and get it out, because I find with myself is that if I verbally talk about something, I hold myself accountable. Meaning that if I say I'm going to do better, then I will do better because I've said it out loud. And for me, writing stuff down is good, but in some capacities, I don't retain that because I'm not speaking out loud when I write. I'm just literally pen to paper. But with this is different because now I'm verbalizing. I can go back to it, um, and I can hear myself. And that's one thing that I find is a very positive trait of, um, for me. is that I can come back and I can reference it and I can listen to it. And I can hear what I was saying and how I was saying it. The one thing is you don't know who you are without the conflict, without the waiting, without the daily check-in. So when you're in that sort of position, you now have to sit there and say, hey, you know, you can't send that text, you can't make that call, um, you can't show up at this place, you can't bring them this, and that's a lot because you are conditioned. Like when you're in a relationship, like and you're willing to do everything for them, like you get conditioned and it just gets locked into you. So you go from doing that, whether it's a task every day, every other day, or once a week, and now it's gone. You yourself have to sit there and kind of pump the brakes and be like, okay, how am I going to handle this? And for me personally, besides the vlogging, it's taking care of my mental health, taking care of my physical health, making sure I'm eating right, making sure I'm going to the gym. That to me is the best form of therapy. Barbell therapy all day. Give it to me. Don't give me a couch. Don't give me a shrink. Give me a barbell. But don't get me wrong. Like honestly, like if you feel more comfortable laying on a couch talking to a shrink, I suggest doing it. Finding a close friend that you can confide in, absolutely. Family member, absolutely. It's good that you have to get it out. You have to talk about it. Otherwise, it will eat you alive. I'm telling you. In my earlier years, it just ate me alive, and I was spinning 12 ways to Sunday. You know, and that's not good. So, you then, once you're in the quiet, now you have to rediscover the person you left behind. Um, because in relationships, you do lose parts of yourself. Why? Because you are so locked in and in, I hate to use the word blinded, but I'm going to use the word blinded of, hearing what they have to say, not necessarily seeing that their words don't match their actions, or vice versa, or their actions are matching their words, and um, there's no follow through, or there's a lot of inconsistencies that you weren't aware of, and these are all things that have come, you know, and thrown me back, and I'm just like, wow, I didn't realize that at that time because I was taking them for their word, and I wasn't looking for um, anything else because I was like, we'll just, we'll go with it next time. And even on things that I would bring up, it was still, it was kind of dismissed. So, um, and that's something that, it's tough to, get back because, whether it was you hanging out, whether you had a boys' night, a girls' night. I mean, for me personally, like when I'm in a relationship, I don't believe in, for my partner anyways, to solely put everything into me. You know, I want them to have a life outside of me, and I expect the same in return. And, that was one thing that I had, that my ex did not. Um, and that was kind of a hurdle that became, a big point within our relationship because, I would go out at, and certain things like I would, I would do, but, and I'm trying to think of the wording that I can kind of put towards this of, it was really, um, you know, it was tough. And because then you go into kind of survival mode and people pleasing and unrealistic expectations, and that's what that that wasn't, that was how I was because I was just blinded. I was blinded by myself. It wasn't about rebuilding a new me. I was remembering the original me. So, when you go into that, you have to understand, you have to give yourself some grace because there are certain aspects that you do give up in a relationship. Um, it's just natural. It just happens. Now, for those who are able to, keep themselves as well as keep the relationship, hey, tip of the hat to you. You figured it out. You've obviously got it and understood it. So, um, just kind of keep that one, uh, keep it going for you. But for others like myself, it's stuff that we have to learn. And if I look at everything as like a life lesson, is you don't know until you try. And you may try and it may not work out, and that's okay. Or you may try and hit the nail on the head. Either way, you're trying, and that's what it takes. So, um, it's for me, it's food for thought. It's continuing to learn how to love, but also kind of have my own boundaries or core principles that I'm working on, and that's a part of this process is learning from the things that didn't work. Um, so and that's where kind of then you have to start worrying about your quiet work. Like, how are you going to go about the quiet work, which is no big announcements, no social media speeches. Um, and that's pretty big because in this day and age, a lot of people go to social media platforms and they will literally just puke out everything. Now, whether it's slandering, that ex, or, saying something positive, but understanding that, hey, it didn't work out. Either way, people need that validation. Me, myself, I don't care. I honestly, I'm not a big social media guy. Um, and yes, I will admit that after my divorce, I went through motivational, cues of, certain things, and that was, looking back at that, at that time, trying to, it was more of a thing for myself and not necessarily a grasp for attention, excuse me, but I can see how it comes off as attention seeking. Um, because it's just like, oh yeah, people, hey, you okay, everything all right? And, there are certain people that and there's other people that you don't know that are, kind of reaching out, and it's good to see that, but then again, I didn't want to talk to them. I wasn't going to talk to them about it. So, just kind of keep that in mind is that, once you're going through this, is that, you are there solely to work on yourself. And with that, again, creating small daily actions, right? Small daily actions and goals. Like I said, going to the gym, journaling, prayer is a big one. Diving into parenthood, putting more attention towards your children. But overall discipline, making sure that you're following through um, on what you're saying that you're going to do, which is like, hey, you can structure your life, Monday through Sunday, however you choose, however you see fit, which is, it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to the gym 5 times a week. All right, I am going to go Saturday through Wednesday. I am going to take Thursday, Friday off, and, that's my gym, you know. Um, on Sundays, oh, we go to church, church at a certain time. Okay, cool. Now we get that, Saturday, huh, excuse me. Saturday is a day to, do things around the house. Go to the dump, clean up your room, put the, do laundry, put the laundry away, clean up your house, you know, tackle that project in the backyard that you've been putting off, and so on and so forth. Keep your actions attainable and easy because that will create that discipline, that will create that consistency. Um, One thing I kind of want to say, on that note, is healing didn't look like fire. It looked like routine. and routine is what you need. That's, kind of step one of, breaking, the previous cycle that you were in. Now we're kind of into, working on ourselves, becoming me again, right? And that's, with this sort of section, is your strength, both outer and inner strength starts returning slowly, right? So you have to understand that it's not going to come back all at once. It's going to come back, excuse me, in stages, right? Peace doesn't show up loud, it arrives gentle. And, that's really one of, kind of the big things of this is keeping your peace throughout this whole avenue, is being able to remain calm, during this, because it is a challenging time, without a doubt, especially if you were in a relationship for a fairly long time, there's a lot to unpack. And now, even if you're talking about, if you get a divorce, that's even more to unpack, because, you have all of that, but now, you have the legal stuff that comes with it. But, what I can say about that is becoming yourself again is good. And it's something that you should never forget. And, hopefully you only have to learn, once or twice and kind of figure it out. But if you're like me, I've had to learn multiple times. So, but you just keep at it. It's being able to, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but it's being able to look at yourself honestly and telling yourself the truth and working on yourself to get you better. So for the next one, you're ready to rock and roll with no sort of hiccups. It's one day. I didn't wake up thinking about them. I woke up thinking about me. And that's essentially what you want to, come to, because when you do go through those things, is you have a lot of triggers. You have, restaurants that you ate at, food that you ate, things that you talked about, music that you listened to, things that you did together. All of that shit is gonna pop up. Whether it be numbers, whether it be colors, whether it be smells. All of that stuff is going to, keep you kind of in that loop, but you have to persevere. You have to, fight through and continue to move forward, and understand that, as you heal yourself, that pain that you experienced of this breakup will slowly dissipate. And I can't give you a time frame. Everybody's different. Some people go fast. Some people go extremely slow. It's all in how you process, right? If you are processing and overanalyzing everything and trying to go detail for detail, guess what? You're gonna have some you're gonna have some time in front of you, because you're gonna be asking yourself the whys, right? Don't worry about why. Like, if they broke up with you, which happened in my situation, is I was dumped. That was your answer. And, as hard as that is to sit there and accept, you have to. Because you did not make that choice. They chose to leave you. And you know your worth. So, take that as it is and, roll with it. But essentially, when you start waking up, it's not about, it's not about, them. It's all about, hey, what do I got on the docket today? What am I doing? I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do my morning, routine, which could be working out. It could be meditating. It could be reading. It could be sitting there drinking a cup of coffee on your, in your house before you jump in the shower. The biggest thing is you don't want to rush anything. Being rushed will get you nowhere. Is you want to have everything be deliberate. You want to have everything be at what I like to call your pace, your speed. Meaning, we wake up. That's why we wake up nice and early, so we don't have to rush in the morning. And you will find that the more you program yourself to do that, the better off you will be in the long run. But I'm telling you, you will be able to rebuild. It does take time, but again, give yourself that grace because you deserve it. And kind of, going back to, like, if you were the dumpy, if you dump them, then guess what? You've made a decision for yourself. Now you can sit there and question back and forth whether you made the right or wrong decision. That's up to you. Oh, did I wait too long? Did I not wait long enough? But that's something is you have to think about. But don't sit there and dwell on that, because you made a choice for you at that particular moment, and you have to live by that. So don't overanalyze it, but then again, you made a decision for yourself. And at the end of the day, like, one thing that I've learned through my healing journey here is I had no control. I didn't have the control, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, it's two people that need to make decisions that's going to be best for themselves. And if you're not aligned, then it doesn't matter how much work you put in. You're just not going to work. That time is eventually coming. So keep that in mind going forward. The one thing I'm going to kind of close on is you don't always get the best version of you that was before. You become a wiser one, which it's true. You learn from your mistakes. You think about how that relationship started, in the middle, and ended, and you learn from that, and you just kind of push yourself through. One thing I want to ask you guys is, my kind of episode question, if you will, is what part of yourself, excuse me, what's one part of yourself you're trying to rebuild right now? Let me know. Leave a comment. Love to hear from you. But until then, once again, I appreciate, all you guys taking time to watch my videos. My goal, like I said before, it's hopefully I get through to one person. That's all that I care about. One person. If I can let them know that they're not walking this alone, then then I'm happy, then I'm satisfied. Just also give you another tease about episode 19 following next week. It's learning how to love again without losing yourself. So stay tuned. But for now, guys, rock on. Enjoy that Sunday, whatever it is that you have planned. Day of NFL football, day of prayer, day of rest, whatever it is. Hit the gym. Whatever you have planned, do 100%. See you later.